weakness and sympathy toward the Muslim world, and it's all of these Muslim countries that have all of the oil in the Middle East. And they're pushing us around. We've got pirates pushing us around because the president looks so weak. We're going to talk more about this, and as we begin hour number 2 here on BHL, I want you to be with me because we're bringing on an expert to back me up on what I'm saying about instability in the Middle East and its impact on oil prices and what you pay at the gas pump. It's all coming up here on BHL. Good morning as we come up in 10 seconds on 7 o'clock in your news update. The Budman with Jenna here on the 50,000-watt front porch. We're glad you're with us on 540 WFLA. Great to have you with us. Hope you were with us on the back end of hour number 1 here on BHL when I laid it out for you. What's it going to mean at the pump if we go to $4 a gallon gas to $5 a gallon gasoline? Ongoing and increasing instability in the Middle East is really spooking the energy markets, and we're going to be talking about the Middle East in that context now as we bring on financial expert Clark Hodges. He's a financial advisor, financial strategist with Hodges Capital, and the impact of stocks, oil, etc. from this situation in the Middle East. Nice to have you with me, Clark. Good morning.
Good morning, Bud. It's good to be on. Thank you for having me.
All right, as you take a look at the Middle East and what's happening in the oil markets, what do you see?
Well, I see the consumer being worried about where gas prices are going, first and foremost. I think that's how it affects most of the people that I interact with on a daily basis. They're worried about what that price is going to be next time they go fill up their car, you know. From the stock market's perspective, the stock market hates uncertainty.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when it comes to oil and oil prices and this sort of thing. So the stock market needs to have some resolution to its question of what's going on here the next few days, or it'll continue to sell off a little bit.
Well, yesterday the markets were down, and because yesterday the whole Gaddafi thing really blew up, even though they're not a huge oil producer. I mean, who knows whether or not all of this continues to ripple through the Middle East, and all of a sudden regimes like Saudi Arabia are overthrown, and, of course, they're huge oil suppliers.
Right. That's the key. If Saudi Arabia, if this happens to them, if they get involved in this, then we've got a real issue that somebody in Washington is going to have to come out and address. They should have already, in my opinion, but that's going to really affect oil prices.
What is it that you want to hear from Washington that you're not hearing?
The stuff in Egypt happened, and we were first to, back up and say good things about the guy over there.
You mean Mubarak initially?
Yeah, this is an anti-U.S. guy. It's been around for decades.
41 years, yeah.
Causing harm. And I think America needs to come out and say, hey, this is not all right with us. But
well, we haven't heard from the president. There are thoughts that he may be afraid if he gets Gaddafi really angry because he's nuts, that he may take a bunch of U.S. hostages. If we can't get all of our people out of there, we may have another Iranian hostage crisis, and you know what a complete nightmare that was for this country.
Well, if that's the case, then I'll let him buy some time and not come out and say anything and get people out of there. But we don't need to be worried about how we look to the rest of the world. We need to come out and make a statement, a fundamental belief that this stuff is not right, because it will affect the American consumer. And when it's all said and done, that's who he's president for.
Well, I agree with you very, very much on this, Clark. I appreciate you being willing to be that opinionated. Professionally, you're a financial advisor and a strategist with Hodges Capital, and it's good to have you on this morning. Just before the break, you may not have heard this segment, but I talked about how much discretionary income disappears for the average driver if gas goes from $3 a gallon to $4 a gallon, God forbid, to $5 a gallon. Give us your perspective on what the dangers are for the economy in general, for the fragile recovery, whether it could spiral us into another deep recession or depression, and how this really does impact so much of our lives if gas goes through the roof.
Well, in my opinion right now, this is slowing down the recovery. This is a worry ward on the economy and people's thought process throughout the day. I don't see a big major concern unless you live maybe in New England or California until gas prices get to $3.50. Once they get to that price, I think you're then talking about Americans canceling vacation plans.
Yep.
Therefore, it's going to affect all that industry.
And of course, we're here in Orlando, which is the best vacation destination and most popular in the entire country. The beyond the burden it would place on us just making our way around town here, living our lives in Central Florida, we would take the double whammy from folks all over the country canceling trips here.
You bet. People who take summer jobs to work there, people that rely on, waiters and waitresses that rely on that. Those are the real people that will be affected by, $3.50 or north prices in gasoline. Mickey Mouse is probably very worried this morning.
Absolutely, and all of us who live in the shadow of the mouse are worried this morning. Any closing thoughts as you look at the Middle East and the situation with oil prices and where you believe this is headed, and what advice you might have for people?
The advice I give my customers is that this can be an opportunity if you look at it that way, and take a look at some companies that you might have thought about buying a stock in. You might have been sitting on the sidelines the last few months. Since September, the stock market has been pretty good. And if you've been on that sideline, you've been thinking, man, I need an entry point. I really wish I could buy Apple Computer. I wish I could buy some oil companies. These kinds of breathers in the market are when people need to think long term and say, this may be a good entry point for some of my money. And that's what I'm telling my customers on a daily basis.
What is the most low-risk stock buy right now? Is it oil stocks? Because we just don't know how high they're going, but we know they're going up.
Well, I think you wouldn't say low risk, especially with what's going on in the Middle East, that oil stocks are. But they have the potential, with oil prices approaching $100 a share and probably on their way to 110, they just have the potential to make so much money getting that stuff out of the ground, whether it's out of the ocean or out of the ground here. And so those are good. To me, if you can find an oil stock that pays a nice dividend and it's kind of on the blue chip side, a well-established company, those are probably worth looking at here.
Okay, I'm just about out of time. If folks want to connect to you, Clark Hodges, financial advisor, financial strategist with Hodges Capital, how do they do it?
HodgesCapital.com, or they can call it 888-878-4426 and get right to me.
Clark Hodges, thanks for coming on Bud Hedinger Live. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you, Bud. Appreciate it very much.
All right, it's 7:12 right now, and coming up, our two top state lawmakers talk tough about cutting spending dramatically. How does that jibe with the reality that between them they have more than 60 staffers making at least $100,000 a year? I don't know how well they can sell that. I'll tell you what I know in 1 minute here. Well, maybe a couple more than that. It's 7:12, checking real-time traffic and weather together on the twos right now for the next minute. Weather check, lots of fog out our window right now and maybe out yours or your windshield. It'll all burn off. Sunshine beautiful today. The afternoon high 78. We're at 59 here in Orlando. I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you who encouraged me as I lost all of that weight on the Medifast weight loss program, 75 pounds in 6 months. And then as I make my way around town now, a couple of years later, you tell me how good I look. I really appreciate hearing that, and I also like telling the Medifast story because I know that there